Ramos was first elected in 2018, part of a new generation of Queens Democrats unseating longtime incumbents in primaries. And she says she's hoping to get even more young people engaged in politics.
If we took the time to actually learn how the different levels of government work.
Start by congratulating you on being the first Latino to be nominated for this very important position. I'm the first Latina to be appointed to the Judiciary Committee, and I don't take this moment lightly, or my questions lightly. I want to start by asking, do you think the New York State Constitution provides a stronger defense to our civil rights and our human rights than the federal Constitution?
As I stated earlier, Senator, the New York State Constitution is so much more exhaustive and comprehensive than the state Constitution. So I think as a general proposition, it does.
Yeah, you know, there's been a lot of discussion of due process in the lead up to this hearing, and it does require, of course, a notice of complaint and the opportunity to be heard. So I wanted to set the record about what due process actually means. I think a lot of people seem to be worried that you weren't getting due process yourself in the lead up to this hearing. I chair the Labor Committee here in the State Senate, and while a lot of my colleagues have already discussed Cablevision in a few ways, I want to contextualize for us all here that right now the labor movement is really concerned about oral arguments that are going to be heard by the Supreme Court very soon in Glacier Northwest versus Teamsters Local 174. And that's why we're referring to this particular case so much. This is why this one was cherry-picked, right? So can you tell me, what evidence it was that you considered to show that union reps at a union event were actually acting in their individual capacities?
Right. Well, it wasn't, again, it wasn't an evidentiary ruling because we were dealing with a complaint. But the fact that was alleged, again, I think it was at paragraph 38, but I don't have the complaint in front of me, suggested that there was an allegation, a sworn allegation of fact, that at a town hall meeting, that these individuals made statements in their individual capacity, not as union members.
Okay. Do you understand the financial and personal burden that is placed on an individual when a giant corporation like Cablevision forces that individual to go through the discovery process, even if the lawsuit is ultimately dismissed?
Oh, I understand. Let me start by saying I absolutely understand and agree with you that in litigation, whether it's labor, whether it's a plaintiff's case against the doctor, whether it's any type of matter that puts you in the in the court system, that there are expenses, that there's emotional toll on individuals, and that going through litigation is never easy. So I completely understand that sentiment.
In an earlier response to one of my colleagues' questions, you stated that perhaps this case had been chosen to derail your nomination. So I want to ask, why would private sector unions want to derail your nomination?
I couldn't speak to that.
So then the comment you made earlier?
Well, I wasn't suggesting that that you're assuming a fact I wasn't considering. But there are, I believe, fair to say, there are individuals who would have preferred a different nominee. And I think it's those individuals who've raised this case and who've talked about it. The concerns from labor, I think it's legitimate that I answer them here today. I'm not questioning that. But I am saying that there are activists who would have preferred someone else, had been nominated, and have used that case to attack me. That's my position.
Right. So let's discuss a different labor case. One of particular importance to me, the matter of worker misclassification, which is something that this legislative body will be seeing and talking about in the foreseeable future. In the case of Sanabria versus Agüero Borges, the appellate opinion did not discuss any evidence offered to prove Agüero Borges' employee status. Is it true that the evidence presented to the trial court was enough to convince that court that Mr. Agüero Borges was misclassified?
I don't have recollection of that case, Senator, but I'll gladly take a look at it and get back to you after the hearing.
Well, I have several questions about that one. I'll move on then to Campanelli v. Long Island Lighting Company. You remember that one? Okay. You joined the majority in that particular case. This opinion used a narrow interpretation of the duty of care, which foreclosed the opportunity for a lead-exposed infant to recover for injuries associated with lead exposure in utero and in the first 7 months of the child's life. Is it a correct interpretation of the holding to say that, according to this case, the common law duty of care did not extend to anyone other than the employee, and that OSHA does not convey protections to infants exposed or injured as a result of the unsafe working conditions of their parents?
Thank you for the question, Senator. That case in particular is a very difficult case, and difficult because of the facts you just indicated. I can only imagine what that family's going through to know that their child suffered as a result of whatever was in the air surrounding the mother, which I believe is alleged to have been brought home by the father. So let me say I share with you concerns over that family. And I also agree with you that OSHA regulations as well as state regulations that protect workers are essential and are necessary. However, in the case at bar, our case law is clear that OSHA does not apply to non-workers. So the extension you're referring to would, again, I would welcome if the federal government were to extend that, or if this body were to extend that to workers. But there's nothing in the law currently that extends, not to workers, pardon me, to family members. But there's nothing in the law that currently does that. I don't know if this body's considering doing that, but that's what that decision was based on, Senator.
So would it be safe to say that you don't consider a broader reading of statutes that are designed to protect people like OSHA?
Well, I don't think to say that's a generalization. I wouldn't say that I don't generally. I read statutes as they're written, and there's nothing in that statute that I remember, and again, I'm talking about a case from years ago, that indicated that the child would be protected under OSHA. Again, I would welcome a statute from this body or from the federal government that would do just that, but I don't know of one that does under those circumstances.
Okay. Judge LaSalle, I have a constituent. Her name is Michelle Vergara, and her son is being held on Rikers right now, which is right in my backyard in Queens, despite being eligible for mental health diversion. And diversion was actually denied twice to him by the Queens District Attorney. Are you familiar with Article 216 as it relates to drug treatment courts?
Absolutely, I am.
I carry a bill called the Treatment Not Jails Bill, which would expand Article 216 and allow New Yorkers suffering from mental illness to resolve their cases through treatment under the supervision of qualified clinicians, not attorneys. Would you expand pretrial diversion and mental health courts in our state?
I'm so glad you asked me that question because that's a priority for me. If indeed I am confirmed, Senator, again, if I'm confirmed, I do plan to place Edwina Mendelson before the Administrative Court Board, and if she is indeed, if I receive their consent, she would serve as the Chief Administrative Judge. That's her specialty. That's what she does, is she works in the area of problem-solving courts. And the first thing that I will do is put together a panel, including stakeholders, judges, lawyers, to see how we can expand mental health courts, because diversion is necessary. We've had so much success in Brooklyn with Judge Demick, and in Manhattan, from what I understand right now, we only have room for 50 individuals. My understanding is the New York County District Attorney would like to see that raised to 200.
Have you seen how it's worked in Ontario County?
No. How is it working?
Well, supposedly very well.
Well, and so if it is, then we're going to expand it, because, Senator, we talk about decarceration. I think the best way to do that, one of the ways to do that, is through pretrial diversion. Mental health, as you talk about, is an issue that's been with us for many years, but we're finally talking about it. We're finally, as a society, acknowledging it. So if we can give someone stability, help them get a job, help them find a place to live, give them structure, if that helps them, why not do it? So I share that with you, Senator, and I hope that we can work on that
So,
together if I'm confirmed.
I'm sorry to cut you off in the interest of time. There are about 6,000 people on Rikers Island currently awaiting trial. Actually, on my last visit, not only did I witness a man try to take his own life, I actually ran into somebody I grew up with and hadn't seen in years, only to learn that he's been waiting for trial for almost 5 years. 19 people, actually, in 2022 passed away or died, took their own life while awaiting trial on Rikers Island. How do you plan to move these trials along?
Well, thank you, Senator, for that question. I agree with you. We've been successful in the Second Department with our appellate criminal cases. I expect to be equally successful if indeed I'm confirmed. What has to happen is we have to find the oldest cases. You mentioned this individual, 5 years and still doesn't have a trial. That doesn't make any sense to me. That'd be one of the cases that should be prioritized. We have to find judges who want to do this type of work and put them in those positions to do that type of work, which is to try these cases. We have to make sure, and we have to work with our district attorneys and our institutional providers to make sure discovery is being done in a timely manner. We have to make sure that plea bargain offers, when they're given, are fair. We have to work towards coming up with solutions. Again, diversion opportunities. So I couldn't agree more that anyone sitting in Rikers a day longer than they should be, and not just Rikers, any correctional facility across the state is unacceptable. I share your commitment to that, and I hope we can work together on it if I'm confirmed.